Welcome to Planet of the Associations. I'm Seth Kahn.
And I'm Mark Levy.
And Mark, what are we doing here?
So this is a show about the association of the near future, not the distant future, but the future 3 years from now, X+3 of when you're listening to this now. And this specific episode is about innovation and creativity, because you and I both have backgrounds in innovation and creativity. So tell us a little bit about innovation and creativity, and I'll jump in.
Okay. So, what can you do when you talk about innovation? What can you do? You can do something that is more of what you're doing. You can do something that's better of what you're doing. You can do something that is completely different from what you're doing. More and better are a lot easier because you've already got competencies in those spaces. Completely different can really be a challenge. It's like, if you're running a gardening store and you decide to open a McDonald's, it's like a different skill set, right? Doesn't mean you can't do it. It's just you have to be aware of that. So when I think of innovation, I think of how am I going to be changing? How am I going to, and of course, there's a value assessment with the word innovation. I mean, we can talk about innovation kind of in the scientific sense, and it can just mean aberration or a differentiation. But in the business world, innovation implies greater success. You've done something to change your products or services, and you're having greater success as a result. What do you think of when you think of innovation?
Well, it's interesting. Innovation's in my company name, right? Levy Innovation. But I picked that name a long time ago.
What does that mean? You still have it.
I know, right? Innovation to me it's something new and something different, but there's a pragmatism to it. And so I think in working with lots of people on being more innovative, on being more creative, on coming up with new products and services and things of that nature, I find that people, they try to be pragmatic too quickly. It just doesn't really work that way, that you really need to go full flight into creativity and to unusual thoughts. And you need to, go nuts in that direction. And then you can bring back something interesting from that land of nuts.
The land of nuts.
Right. But if you try to keep 1 foot in the land of pragmatism and 1 foot in the land of nuts simultaneously, it just doesn't work that well, because one will act as an anchor pulling the other back. I mean, especially the world of pragmatism will weigh down any interesting thoughts that you get.
You don't just get ripped apart by an interdimensional rift.
Right, exactly. You'll be turned inside out. Your guts will be lying there. Exactly. So it's this idea when I'm teaching people to be creative, one of the things I have them do is I call these things, I write about it in my book, Accidental Genius. I call it forced creativity. So in other words, they're exercises where people they usually just have one rule in the exercise. I don't want it to be too difficult on people. And as long as they follow that one rule, then they're going to go to someplace new. And and if I've spoken about this before, I apologize.
No. We haven't heard this before. This is new.
Yeah. All right, good. So an example of forced creativity, I mean, there's hundreds of things that I could say, but it would be an idea of tell me everything about the subject that's obvious, like just painfully obvious. Tell me everything about the subject that's surprising. Like these are separate exercises.
Right, I'm getting you, yeah.
These are take your subject and divide it into four parts. It doesn't really have 4 parts, but let's pretend it has 4 parts, divided into 4. Now take one of those parts. It's like pick a card, pick one of those 4, and now divide that into 4. And now tell me about one of those 4, that 4 part, like pick one of those 4 parts.
Wow.
Now tell me about it. Or something like free writing, right? Again, that's what Accidental Genius is about. So free writing is a technique. Inside each one of us, there's an internal editor that does a very important job. It cleans up what we think and say and write as we think and say and write it, so that we always look smart and confident and consistent to the other person, so that what Seth says sounds like something Seth would say, right? It seems consistent to who you are. Now, our internal editors, like, they've gotten us very far in life, but when we're trying to solve a problem, unlike any other problem we solved before, or we're trying to come up with something brand new, our internal editors often keep us stuck on what's worked in the past. So we'll need something new, and the internal editor will keep on giving us ideas, insights, and stories that we've already used. And it thinks it's doing us a favor, but it's really just keeping us stuck because that stuff's not working. So you need to escape your internal editor. You need to escape your ego. You need to escape, who you define yourself as, temporarily at least, in order to come up with something new. So when you do free writing, you set a timer, let's say for 10 minutes, and you open up an empty Word doc, or you take out a piece of paper and a pen and you hit go, and then you just start writing about your topic. Free writing is essentially, it's writing as a means to watch yourself think. That it's not meant for other people. You're just dumping what appears in your mind on the paper, and it's nonstop writing. Like, you do not stop for any reason whatsoever, because if you stop, your internal editor is going to kick in. So it's essentially, you're trying to leave the internal editor behind. So you're writing a little faster than you normally would, and you don't stop for any reason whatsoever, and you allow yourself to digress and write about things that have nothing to do with the problem. And if you keep on, and when 10 minutes is over, you stop writing and you look over what it is you wrote and you underline interesting ideas. And then you say, what do I want to explore next? And then you do another 10 minutes. And you do the same thing. After it stops, you underline interesting things, and then you say, what do I want to explore next? So I sometimes, when I've had to do projects that were really important, where I knew millions of people were going to be reading what it is I wrote, I sometimes free wrote for hours.
Wow.
Just doing that over and over and over again. So it helped me come up with ideas that were brand new for me. And I even was eventually able to use some of the prose I was creating. I would open up an empty document, and I would pull out different sections of prose and stick in the document and rearrange it and trim it down and write in stuff that needed to be said, but I hadn't said before. But anyway, that's creating kind of a finished prose document. But the idea of free writing to me is a sense of it. It's an exercise of forced creativity too, in the fact of, as long as you write knowing no one's going to see this but you, the pure document, and as long as you write a tad faster than you normally do, and as long as you write without stopping, if you do enough of these sessions, you're going to come up with good ideas, like guaranteed. Like it's going to happen.
Guaranteed.
It's going to happen.
So let me just ask you. So first of all, it reminds me, what you're talking about getting outside your own head reminds me of Gödel, the famous mathematician who proved that—
I've seen his grave, by the way.
Oh, have you?
There you go.
Wow.
He's buried in Princeton.
Wow. So he proved that if you have a completely consistent system, you must have a paradox in it somewhere. In other words, a fully in a system where everything inside makes sense, given a certain set of rules. The only way that can happen is if somewhere it's broken, and that's kind of the escape hatch, right? It's a weird thing. It's like a topological donut that has a door that opens up.
Say that, because it doesn't say this on his gravestone anywhere.
No,
so
it doesn't.
Say it to me.
He did many things. Gödel was an amazing human being.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Tell me again. I don't quite get that idea. Say, because I'm not a mathematician.
To have an entire system that's consistent, that follows its rules, the only way that you can have that and have it work is if somewhere there's a place where the rules break. There's a way out. And it sounds to me like, okay, so I'll just put this on the table. Mark, don't take this too big, or we won't be able to get your head inside your Zoom box. Yeah. But you're one of the smartest people I know. You're one of the smartest people I know. And there's a real danger with smart people, which is that a lot of times they think that the way they see the world, the way they understand the world, is the way the world is. but you don't have that. And you've specialized in your life on this idea of how do you get out of your own way so that you can be creative, so that you can be innovative. It's like a core competency of yours. You're really good at the escape hatch. One of the things you do. And that's what this reminds me of. And I think it's really challenging for a lot of leaders, because a lot of leaders are really smart. They're capable of juggling many things at the same time. They're capable of different kinds of relationships going on simultaneously, which means that they're operating in worlds that might be mutually exclusive at the same time, right? It's like there's a lot going on upstairs. And one of the traps is that you can begin to think that you fully understand a particular aspect of the world, which of course is not true. We know that's not possible, right?
Well, so thank you for the compliment. I mean, this idea about being good at escape hatches, I often ask that people. I kind of got this from an AI scientist, Roger Schenck. I think Roger said something like anomalies are where the action is.
Yes.
And so in looking at a system or looking at an idea or looking at a situation, I actually, first I say, what is this thing? Foundationally, like what is it clearly and exactly? And then what's anomalous here? Like it's almost like girdle. Is that how you say
right.
girdle? It's almost like saying, what is this thing? And now where is it broken? It's exactly what it is. When you said it the first time, I said, I don't understand what you're saying. But now that you say it, it's like, I guess that's exactly what it is I do.
So look,
but just to finish the thought, it's how does this universe operate? And where are my expectations for how it should be operating? Where are they being defeated? And why are they being defeated there? And now what do those defeats say?
What's the information there?
I said that with great profundity. I apologize.
Speaking of great profundity, you're like the only other person in the world I know who's read Roger Schenck. So, I mean,
have you read? Oh my God, he's like my hero.
Storytelling, knowledge management, those two worlds are big in my past. And of course, when they found each other, Roger Schenck was in the intersection of that Venn diagram, right? And not storytelling the way you think about storytelling, right? I mean, he has a very different idea of what a story is. He's an AI specialist.
Right. He has to teach machines how to think.
Yeah.
So he has a different way. A wonderful story, if I may, that I remember reading. Yeah, he has, I've read all his books. Probably my favorite book of his is a book called The Creative Attitude, which is like 30 years old, but that was such an important book to me. Roger, in one of his books, I don't think it was that book, he talked about, and I may have a few of the facts here wrong, but the general story is going to be correct, that he and his wife and his young son, and his son was maybe about 10 years old at the time, they went, this was decades ago, they went to Japan. And the son didn't want to go with Roger and his wife. They want to explore Tokyo, whatever.
Okay.
And Roger said, okay, here's some yen. You go off and explore what you want to explore, and we'll see you back at the hotel at 6:00.
Okay.
And so the son like started to take the train, like to get places. And he so loved the train that he didn't even get off the train. He'd just get off the train to take different trains.
Oh, okay.
And he started going all around, and he loved the train so much that anytime Roger and his family would travel, the son would just take the train, like whatever country or so. And the son in his room, whereas like me growing up, I had posters of magicians and baseball players, like New York Mets players and magicians, and a haunted house and things like that. That's what happened in my room. His son had train schedules and train maps up. That was what he had. And his son became a city planner.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so Roger's a big proponent of this idea of kids learn, like we're teaching kids things that they don't need to know. Like, you need to teach them what it is that they want to know. Then they'll get really excited by it and bring that kind of enthusiasm and that thoughtfulness to the subject. And right. So that's just the story that pops up to me.
Which makes sense. And also in terms of innovation and creativity, which is, what is it that you're passionate about? Where could you write for 10 minutes on, I mean, look, I want to do one of your exercises. Let's do one right now live. Let's take grand challenges and let's divide it up into 4 parts. Okay.
Oh, okay.
You're going to coach me. I'm going to do this. You're going to coach me in this process. And we're going to come up with some innovations around, I don't know, products and services for grand challenges. Just on the fly.
First, right. Okay. So first, define for everyone what a grand challenge is.
A grand challenge is a big, bold goal that an organization takes on to solve a socially intractable problem.
Okay. And what would be an example of not that people have to follow this, but what's an example of a grand challenge?
The American Nurses Association. When I worked with them, we created Healthy Nurse, Healthy Nation. We knew that nurses in every category except for smoking were worse off than the average American, and the average American is not in great shape. So we created Healthy Nurse, Healthy Nation to measurably improve the health of America's 4 million nurses. And by extension, the nation.
Beautiful. All right. So now then, divide grand challenges up into 4 parts. And those 4 parts, by the way, there are no 4 parts. And
Just to be clear,
I don't want you to be delusional on me, because I run into this all the time. I work with people, and they'll be trying to create conceptual models. They'll try to create frameworks or so, and they get really stuck. And I say, your framework, your conceptual model is just supposed to be for ease of use for human beings. That's what the whole idea of a framework is. So if your framework is making you depressed and stuck and whatnot, then there's a problem with your framework, and you better get rid of it and try another framework.
That's right.
It's like silly.
Pitch it out with the trash, right? It's like, why are you holding on to that?
Right. It's like the framework doesn't exist on it. Like you're forgetting what a framework is for.
It's like if you buy a car and the guy says, by the way, this car doesn't move. It's
right, exactly.
Like, I don't want that car.
Right. It would be like, if I want to start jumping rope, but I said, I'm going to need to gain 30 pounds and start smoking so that I can jump rope and to lose weight. Does it make sense?
Okay. All right. So
for your 4 parts, it can be anything. They don't even need to be logical or coherent. What would be the grand challenge?
Right. We're doing this on the fly, so I'm just riding along with you here.
Yep.
Okay. There's the intractable problem itself.
Okay.
There's the host organization.
Okay.
There's all of the partners and on the players that need to be involved in order for this thing to work.
Okay.
And then there's the metrics. How are you going to know you're succeeding?
Okay. So pick one of those that you have energy for. It doesn't have to be the logical starting place, although it could be.
The host organization. I have energy for that.
That was the one that was most interesting to me too.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes.
Why?
So now,
why is that interesting to you? Just out of curiosity.
I don't know. I think it's the word host is an interesting idea. Like, what is a host? And the host is where everything is happening. Like it's all happening there. So if something's going to happen, that's where it's happening.
Okay. I'm with you.
Like, so it's like the nucleus of what should be, of what the thing is,
my host brain goes in 2 directions. One direction is like, let's have a potluck dinner at my house. I'll be the host. Like that's like a very warm, fuzzy host, right?
Right.
Come on over and I'll host the event. The other one is like from science fiction movies. It's like
oh yeah,
the host that's got the alien growing inside of it.
Right. Right.
Anyways, we're not talking about either one of those, by the way.
Right. Exactly. So now take the host organization concept and now divide that into 4 capriciously, however you want to divide it into 4.
Okay. The host organization does leadership and strategy. The host organization does fundraising. The host organization, the leaders have to be willing to transform themselves in order to lead in the host organization. And the host organization has no carrots and sticks because all of the partners and players work for someone else.
Oh, interesting.
So I just made those up. They're not mutually exclusive categories. They're not orthogonal. They're just 4 things I created.
Okay, cool. And now pick one of those as if you were picking a card.
Let's see. So I said the host organization is leadership and strategy. The host organization has doesn't have carrots and sticks. I like that one. Let's go with doesn't have carrots.
That was my favorite too.
Oh my God, this is.
It was. I'm not like Carl Rogers, and I'm back to you. But it is. That's the one I like too. So
actually, Mark and I are in the same room, and he's slipping me cards underneath the line right here that divides us. Right. Exactly.
No, you're actually. Where are you in Bethesda?
I am.
Right, and I'm in New Hope, Pennsylvania. So
yeah,
it would be a long slip. Yeah.
Okay. So, no carrots and sticks.
So now divide that into 4. I'm adding to that. This is not what I originally told you. I'm adding an extra divide.
That's right. We're like at the cube root of the original.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. No carrots and sticks. So different type of leadership is required because you can't just tell people what to do. Tolerance for people to see things really differently than the way you do, not just a little bit differently, but really different. The common agenda becomes the skeleton key, the thing that holds everything together. In other words, if I'm not leading with carrots and sticks, what am I leading with? I'm leading with a common agenda, some future result we all want. And one more thing for no carrots and sticks. Well, the good news is that I don't have to do personnel evaluations on any of them.
So which one of those do you like?
Which one? Okay, so no carrots. I say, yeah. The skeleton key that holds it all together, the common agenda.
That was the one I liked.
You're just saying that.
No. Yeah.
I have a fondness for skeleton keys. I love the idea that there could be something that could open like lots of different doors that are not the same. I just think that that's a great metaphor for something. I don't know what it is, but I love that.
Right. Well, and now that you say that, I've never really thought about skeleton keys, although you'd think I would, since I'm a magician. But I wonder if the idea of skeleton key, if it's that it looked skeletal, or is it that skeletons are foundational? And so, right, without a skeleton, you're going to operate.
You're just a blob of protoplasm, man.
Right. I'm going to have to look up the etymology of skeleton key. So now start talking to me about what that is, about this.
Okay, so skeleton key is, I imagine it going through all these different keyholes and working. It's like it's like threading a needle. Every partner that you show up with and every potential partner has to kind of respond to this aspiration. They don't, not in the same way, but they have to respond to the same aspiration. Everyone has to find it compelling. So it could be for very different reasons, and that's okay. It doesn't matter. We could be completely misaligned on the motivation, as long as the outcome is something that turns both of our heads and we both want, when we want it deeply. Skeleton keys. See, this is what you want me to do? Keep talking. And am I deviating from grand challenges now and just going into skeleton key?
Well, no. How does this fit grand challenges?
Once you do a good job of articulating the common agenda, then it's a magnet and it pulls people to you, because everybody who is compelled by that end result is compelled enough by it that they are willing to invest their own resources in helping to achieve it. And there's often recognition that it is beyond their ability to achieve alone. And so the common agenda is usually representative of a systemic issue. And in systems, you're in a nonlinear relationship, right? You can't just go out and make something happen. You have to, it's a nonlinear relationship means that like if you push really hard on something, it doesn't necessarily go really hard in that direction. It could hit you in the back of the head, or it could be a long delay before anything happens at all. And people get very frustrated by that. So there's an awareness that you have to pull in multiple parties coming from multiple angles to work together to change the situation. And that's your common agenda, that change that you're aspiring to.
What's something, because you're very well, you've thought this through very well, I could tell. What's something in that segment of the problem that you haven't thought through much?
How is there a formula for creating a common agenda?
Oh, interesting. Right. So the common agenda is going to be leading, as you said, it's people are going to be compelled by this dominant idea, but they may be compelled for different reasons. So, right, is there a formula for common agenda? And by agenda, you mean agenda is the big reason.
Yes.
Right? It's not agenda like agenda on a list of
things. It's the aspiration, the common agenda. Like, all 4 million nurses are healthy. That's like your common agenda, right? That's like what you're going for. So, framing your common agenda is tricky. It's usually in the beginning, it seems easy because there's some big problem that's sticking out like a sore thumb. But once you start trying to frame it, capture it with a framework that will appeal to all of these other players who are looking at it very differently than you are, then it becomes challenging to put it together. And I wonder if there's a way to create an algorithm, just like you have an algorithm for like free writing.
Right.
Could I say to somebody, okay, what I want you to do is to go find 20 people who might be interested in this for various reasons, and write down each of their reasons and then pull them all together. And I don't know. Like, is there a process that I could give someone as a recommendation that would actually give midwife that common agenda so that we could all see it?
Has anyone ever done that before?
I don't think so.
Okay, cool. So is that something that you might want to do, or you might want to approach?
Yeah. In fact, I even just sitting here with you, I'm getting an image because I think visually a lot.
Sure.
So the image is of a diamond because it has so many different facets. Like each facet is the lens that each player is looking at, but the diamond itself is real. It's a thing, and they're all looking at the diamond. So I see like a geometric prism, that could represent this common agenda, and that could actually help me because there are actually mathematical formulas for building a geometric prism, right?
Right.
There might be. Yeah, go ahead.
You could try those you could try to find the human version of those geometric.
Yeah, I could.
Well, and what you're talking about, you were talking about, like when you say diamond, right? Diamonds come from coal. And so I was thinking about the idea of what the main idea, the main thing that people are looking at originally maybe had a different form. And so I'm wondering, only because you said, yeah, it's the agenda, it's the thing that we're all striving for, but the way that we may be striving for it for different reasons. So there's just something about like the change. There's such a change from coal into a diamond. I'm wondering about, the main idea of the challenge, what different forms it actually took to arrive at this. But anyway, so
that gets giving me an idea.
Go ahead.
Thinking about Superman. Remember, he would
sure,
coal and he'd get diamonds, right?
Oh yeah.
Pressure. So coal is, when coal's pressurized, it turns into diamonds, and that may not be true, but that's my Marvel comic, or actually it wasn't Marvel.
DC.
Thank you, DC Comics. Siegel. Right. The creator of Superman. He sold it to Warner Brothers for like $5,000.
Right.
Yeah. Anyways, so if you take the different perspectives of the different players who see the common agenda and amp them up from all the different angles simultaneously, you're creating pressure. And that pressure might yield a diamond, and that could be part of the formula. So, for example, with American Nurses Association's Healthy Nurse, Healthy Nation, we had the U.S. Army involved because they saw nurses' health as a national security threat. If the nurses wasn't up to serving the warfighter, that could be a national security threat, something I never would have thought of.
Right.
Harvard Medical School was interested in our data because they were doing the largest longitudinal study of nurses' health, and they had only 8,000 participants. And even if we failed miserably after going for 4 million, we would multiply the number of respondents in their survey. So they said, give us the data, we'll crunch it for free if we can have the data. So those are examples. So you think 3 different angles there, right? National security threat, longitudinal study on nurses, and wanting to make nurses healthy. What if you ramped all 3 of them up and made them even more intense? You might be able to find something there in the middle that really satisfied them.
Well, and so I love what it is you're saying. So we just picked one of those cards when I had you divided into 4, divided into 4, divided into 4. We would continue to talk about each different division card. I'd say, now pick one of the remaining 3 and let's talk about it. Now pick one of the remaining 2. But let's talk about pick the remaining, so that's how this thing works. It's the idea of getting people to look at what it is that has become ordinary to them and getting them to look at it in unusual ways and not putting too much complexity on that. It's more like simplifying it and discussing it so that they're single focused on a specific idea. But so that is the end of our conversation for today on innovation, on Playa the Associations. I have a feeling that we're going to be continuing to talk about innovation and creativity on the next episode. I'm Mark Levy.
And I'm Seth Kahn, and we'll see you there.